A game of chess is like a sword fight. You must think first, right? Before you move.
So, we've been talking about this for a little while, and you decided on getting this S, but what initially made you want to get a tattoo?
I don't know. A big part of it, I think, has to do with aesthetic. The aesthetic of the medieval, Old English letters has been a pinnacle on my graffiti studies and my letter studies. And I think that it's a very strong representation of just things being set in stone. Because when you read things in Old English, it's almost like they're solidified and they're kind of like stuck in history and they can't be removed.
Yeah, like it's coming down from like a tradition and a lineage, and it's like established, right? Yeah, no, I get that. That is really dope. But you said graffiti practice, so why did you decide to start with Old English rather than a more graffiti style type?
I think it would have to become. It came from counterculture and how people took the aesthetic and the font of medieval and turned it into goth, and it flipped the translation of what that font was being represented and how you were able to view it. So rather than taking on any other font, I decided to take on Old English in my graffiti studies because it felt like everything that I did solidified and almost stuck everything, froze everything in time in my work. Even if I painted on a wall, it would get covered the next day, or if I drew something on paper, I'd erase it the next day. Because graffiti is ever changing, while Old English is almost not. It's always the same.
So it's like a foundation. It's something that you can start off with that is just, it's always going to be there for you.
Yeah.
Okay, dope.
You can always bump Biggie, and you can always bump Tupac, but there's times and places where you can't bump Tupac. It's kind of like you have to have that intimate moment with just listening to him on your own. If you're driving or if you're walking or if you're doing something, you have to listen to some of his tracks just on your own because it's not something you can get down to. The one song I can think of that Biggie has where it's more intimate, you can't really play it with people, is Suicidal Thoughts. And even with Suicidal Thoughts, you want to rap that song, you want to rap that track alongside other people too, because there's not a greater feeling than like rapping the exact same lyrics with somebody else. It feels more unifying. And like when you hear Suicidal Thoughts, that song is sad. That song is grimy, man. That song is like, yeah.
People of color.
I agree. The liberation of black people. A lot of people just think it's external freedom, when I think the liberation of black people is financial freedom, artistic freedom, and like judicial freedom. So like just being able to get tattoos and not make it look like you're in prison or you were in the army. Getting tattoos to show that you are an artist who doesn't involve himself in gang violence. And judicial way to be able to get a tattoo as a black artist and still work in a political environment and work as a professional in businesses and this and that without being judged on something that's printed on your body, but rather how your own characteristics.
I think the connotation for tattoos has changed quite a bit. There's still some stigmas, and especially as you go down the line in terms of race, the darker you get, obviously people look at you funny, especially if you have tattoos, right? But the only way to continue to change the stigma is to push the culture. So you push the culture by continuing to do what you do and have these tattoos and be a professional and be an artist and be a member of society, and people can see you. You're very visible, right?
Okay. Well, yeah. I don't. To get an S tattoo, I've always been a big. When I started doing graffiti, the first letter I always started with was an S, and it was because I'd write sub. And it's funny because the popular graffiti symbol is that the S, which I always hated. I personally hated it because it was almost like you guys are destroying my favorite letter. But
It's
yeah,
oversaturated.
and it's like it shouldn't be that deep because it's just letters, but letters resonate in me, not words,
Yeah.
but specifically letters.
So it's like you have a personal relationship with that letter.
With that letter, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's the first of my name. Another reason was, as a kid, I had a lisp, and I got made fun of for it. Another one was the letter S feels like there's almost more negative connotations behind that letter than there are for a lot of things, which is weird because they're letters.
Yeah.
But S is, they can
So
translate
many
to
of the letters that like are connected to S, like
sins,
sex, sin, serpents, snakes.
slithering, slayer,
Wow.
and all these things kind of like have put negative connotations on them. And I'm not here to get that on me to flip the script, no, but it's almost like imprinting myself on the true values I live and die for, which is basically being the devil's advocate in art and in my own practice. And I think the S is like something that can help me, I don't know, maybe solidify myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, S is a very fluid letter, right? So it can also help you maneuver. So, like as you said, with being the devil's advocate, yeah, you may be coming from a place where people don't understand, but you have a good intention.